is Josh Heinrichs. I'm the president of Utilisource. I also have been volunteering my time with the Common Ground Alliance for about the last 15 years, and I currently serve as chairman of the board for the CGA.
Yes, my name is Steve Sellenrick. I'm a contractor by trade. The last 35 years I've been around telecommunications projects, part owner of Utilisource on the engineering side, and I'm also a member of the Common Ground Alliance board and been working there for about the last 3 years.
And my name is Sam Hall. I'm a staff member at the Common Ground Alliance, and we want to tell you about the Common Ground Alliance and how it can help you prevent damage to your utilities and prevent damage to other utilities as you install your own.
Well, what we're here to do today is we want to introduce you to the Common Ground Alliance, and we want to talk you through the 811 process, the process that helps you effectively protect the underground facility infrastructure that you're talking about building now, and just some of the tools that are available through the Common Ground Alliance to you as you work through this process. And so the first thing that we want to do is make the introduction about the Common Ground Alliance. I don't know how familiar any of you are with the CGA or the Common Ground Alliance and the 811 process and how all of that works, but we're just here today to give you some awareness about resources that are readily available to you as you're working through this process. So I think the first thing we should probably do is maybe go back in time a little bit and talk about the advent of the entire call before you dig process. Sam, can you take us through that a little bit and just give us some history on where that started and then how the CGA kind of plugged into all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the 70s, it was widely recognized that there needed to be some kind of system that would help people avoid damaging underground utilities when they were doing construction work. And the states established what are known as misutilities, or were known as misutility. That was a system where you would call into that misutility in your own state, and you would tell them that you were going to be digging in an area. The utility owner operators that were part of that misutility system would then be notified that you were going to be digging in that area, and they would go out and mark all of the lines on the ground. I'm sure you've seen the paint on the ground. You know, when you walk around a city, you'll see paint that marks where utilities are underground, flags, those kinds of things. And that was really where the whole misutility system got its start. Now, there were some shortcomings in that process, and there continue to be some shortcomings in the process, but it is absolutely the best way to avoid excavation damage to underground utilities. In about 1998, it was broadly recognized in the natural gas and hazardous liquid pipeline world that it was really dangerous to hit those lines in particular, right? Because you will pollute the land, you will potentially injure people with what comes out of those pipelines. And one of the things that was identified in the pipeline safety world was that excavation damage was one of the leading causes of pipeline incidents that polluted the earth, that hurt people, that damaged property, and that killed people. And so a group of people, stakeholders, who really wanted to prevent these kinds of damages that would result in these tragic accidents came together to identify how they could collectively, on common ground, figure out how to tackle this problem. They did that by establishing some best practices for construction projects, for notifying underground utility owner operators of construction activity. And those best practices really served as sort of the kernel of the Common Ground Alliance. The Common Ground Alliance is made up of people who have a different, they come from different groups. It would be, underground utility owner operators like yourselves. It would be contractors, the people that go out and locate, mark utilities, and a bunch of other people. All of them had an interest in protecting underground utilities. They were coming at it from a different angle, perhaps. They had different motives. But at the end of the day, what they wanted to do was prevent this damage from occurring. So they formed the Common Ground Alliance. No matter what angle you're coming at this problem from, we have to establish common ground and figure out how we can do this together. So the Common Ground Alliance was born. It is a resource to the country, to include North America, in fact, Canada and Mexico, and some other countries, I think even down in South America. And what we do is promote safe excavation practices. We promote the practices that utility owner operators should follow in order to protect their own utilities for long-term sustainability. You can imagine when you cut a line and you can't repair it, it's going to have impacts to all of the people that are served by those utilities. It can also have impacts to the people who are actually doing the digging and others. So the Common Ground Alliance serves as a resource to people who are working in the underground space. And we're here to help you long-term avoid damages to your utilities. You can join the Common Ground Alliance, but you do not have to in order to take advantage of the resources that we make available. We have educational resources like training videos for safe excavation, how to properly use the misutility system, and the like. We want you to see us as a resource for you in protecting the valuable assets that you own and operate.
Thanks, Sam. So that gives you a little bit of history and kind of backdrop into what the Common Ground Alliance is about. What we want to talk with you about just a little bit is how does this benefit you? How does it make the build on your network better? And so there's really kind of two pieces of that clip together. And the first piece is the design of all of this. As you're thinking about designing your network and understanding what's going on out there, there needs to be some awareness about what you're going to encounter when you're out doing this. And even if you're planning on doing a lot of this overhead, or even in certain instances, as I've listened over the last couple of days and even into last fall, there's a lot of wireless and different things going on. You still have concern about what's already there, what's underground. And the maps that are associated with that in some instances are very good, in some instances they're not. But you need to plug into the 811 process during the planning phase of this thing to make sure that you understand where the underground infrastructure that serves sewer, water, as Sam mentioned, natural gas, other varied utilities that are already there. We want to make sure that your communities and your members are not disrupted with the services that they already have while we're trying to improve their lives by putting in fiber to the home networks or other types of high-speed communication protocol for them. So that piece of it is really important in this process. And there are best practices that are available through the CGA that help with the front-end planning phase of this thing. And as we look at the things that are available and the things that are really important to that planning phase, the next practices piece, or excuse me, the best practices piece of this is really important. It is things where experts in the industry have come together over a number of years, 20 years, to establish what the best practices for planning and design work would be for mapping those facilities and for leveraging that into the 811 system. So when you call and say, hey, we're going to be excavating in this area, we need to understand what's going on out here. You get marks on the ground, you get maps from the facility owners, hopefully, and you get a good plan devised for protecting that infrastructure that already exists during your build.
And it goes beyond that. When you're building these projects, it's amazing. This is a generational time that we can actually help get the fiber to where it needs and the broadband to where it needs. But by doing that, we also want to make sure you're thinking about the damage prevention portion of it, because we wanted you to protect your members, their existing utilities. You don't want to, I mean, I've been on jobs out in the middle of rural areas and hit a water line and drained a water tower, and everybody's without water for 2 days while you try to figure out how to get this thing fixed. We've had gas lines hit and we've caused fires. You don't want to cause that. So what we're saying is you start in, we've talked about supply chain, we've talked about engineering, we've even talked about construction, but the one thing we haven't talked about is damage prevention. And you do not want to cause that community, your tribal members, to have issues, or your surrounding areas to have issues with utilities while this happens. We also want to protect the environment. The placement of fiber optics, whether it's in the air, underground, is very minimal on disruption. With directional boring, with cable plowing, we don't tear up a lot of ground. But when we hit another utility, we can tear up a whole lot more ground. And that's not what we're wanting to do. So what we're saying is, if you look at the best practices, the next practices at CGA, you can go into your project early, especially in areas where you are, because you're normally not going into a competitive environment. So you can let people know very early in the process that we're going to be digging. We're going to be, in your area working. We want to deal with the other utilities. We want to let them know we're coming. Can we get maps? Can we figure out if we do have a problem, who do we call? What's the numbers we call? Can we let the locators know? Because when you roll in an area that hasn't had much construction going on, and all of a sudden you have 4, 5, 6 crews going, they need to have the resources to get those locates, whether it's a third-party locator like USSC or some other people out in the industry, or that utility locates themselves, or your utilities locate themselves. So the communication is key. We don't want to cause disruption to your community and your tribe and your tribal members. So that is what we're really talking about here. It's something that's very important. I've worked on a lot of projects and we've had those issues over time, and they're not fun to do. We want to have we want you to have a very successful project. And by doing this early, you can.
The process is really very easy. It's very straightforward and it's very well established. If you want to participate in the 811 system, what you need to do is join the 811 center in the state in which you operate your utilities. What that means is that you will provide maps to the 811 center. And again, 811 is the national number that you call before you dig. It's like 911. It doesn't matter where you are. If you dial 811, it'll go to your local 811 center. You become a member of that 811 center. You provide them maps of your underground utilities that you own and operate. Whenever a contractor or an excavator goes to dig, by law, they must call 811 before they dig. When they make that telephone call, the 811 center then looks at the map and says, okay, I see that there are some utilities here in this dig area where this contractor has said they're going to come and dig. And they'll notify you as the owner-operator that someone's going to be digging there. Then you, as the owner-operator, go out and you locate that line and you mark it on the ground so that you mark it in paint or flags, so that when someone comes along to dig, they understand, don't dig here. Don't dig into this underground utility. It is a system that is low cost to owner operators. Once you join, I think you pay $1 per ticket, meaning or less. When someone says that they're going to excavate and you go out and locate and mark, you'll pay $1 into that system so that it's self-sustaining and other members can use it. It is by far the best way to protect the utilities that you own and operate. As you get involved in this, there are elements of state government that can enforce the law, but it's not really where the work needs to be done. Enforcement isn't the issue, it's participation. It's doing the right thing to protect your assets. so that those assets can serve your members.
Like Sam talked about, becoming a member of the 811 system as you've built your infrastructure and you're being notified so you can properly protect it is very important. One of the best pieces of advice that I think that we could give you is, as you're building your network infrastructure, make sure that you're investing the effort to get good, solid GPS-based maps that will go into your GIS-based system so that you're future-proofed. And by future-proofed, what we really mean is we see over the next 15 to 20 years that the methodology for underground plant protection is going to change. Right now, it's admittedly a little bit antiquated. We're still going out, we're still hooking on to with an electromagnetic machine to locate these facilities. We're still putting paint on the ground and flags on the ground to identify with reasonable accuracy where those facilities are at. I think we all agree up here where we see that going in the next 15 to 20 years with the continued advancement of technology is being able to leverage your highly accurate GPS-based maps to inform the people in the field where those facilities are. So we see really at some point in time in the future, you may not necessarily dispatch anyone on a truck roll anymore to go out and put the yellow paint over the top of the natural gas line. They may just dispatch those electronic maps to you as an excavator. And I think this is where I'd like to hear Steve weigh in a little bit on how that might work for the excavator. But that's kind of where we see it going. So as you're planning your network, please put some dollars aside to create really good maps around the facilities that you're installing, because in the future.
Well, in the future, I mean, right now, and in the future, what I think you'll do is you'll take this phone, and this will be a GPS device, and it does now up to about 9 feet accuracy. It'll be centimeter accuracy. You'll turn on your phone, the map will pop up, you'll scan the ground, and it'll say the gas line is right here. You'll put the paint mark down and go, here's where we're going to dig it up, guys. Here's where our issue is. You'll walk the entire job site with something like a phone or an iPad, whatever it may be, a tablet of some sort. That is where we're heading in the world. Me and Josh both spend, and Sam spends 52 weeks a year on damage prevention. Me and Josh go to conferences, and I'd say 5 to 6 weeks a year, we're talking about this subject. It is very important. If you've never lived through a major utility strike, and I hope you never have to, I've been to a house that's blown up. I've been to water lines that have wiped out entire yards and a lot of nice stuff. I've seen different things happen where we've had to do excavations in the middle of roads to fix things. You do not want to be on those kind of things. But the better you are with your mapping, there's also a cost savings with your mapping that you didn't bring up, Josh, by spending a little more money up front on your maps. When you put those maps into the 811 system, you can dial it down to where you're maybe only 4 foot on each side or 6 foot on each side. So if you get a locate and they're digging on the other side of the road, you may not have to respond, which saves you money. And so there's a very important thing on the sustainability of this project and your costs as you go on with your ownership. The sustainability of this, by having good electronic maps in the future, we can get to the system I'm talking about. It'll also keep from a lot of things happening that could happen in the future. And we want to see these projects, yes, I'm in the contracting world. CCI is in the contracting world. But we like working on new projects, not having to go out and fix things that are out there. That's not what our guys like to do. We like to put in new projects to extend these lines out. And so when I talk about working rural work, I heard someone up here yesterday talk about putting a cable 2 miles to one house. I was in western Kansas, and we went 6 miles to get to one service in one house. And it was the coolest thing I ever saw, because the guy was like, this is great. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot to protect between here and there to keep one guy up. But with these new mapping things going on, and the contractors are more sophisticated, you're going to see damages drive down. And that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, and as Steve was talking about, the cost to this on the backside is a lot less. The opportunity, as we saw yesterday, there were a number of people talking about the OpEx side of things versus the CapEx side of things. If you plan that in while you're building the project, you can put the cost of building those maps into the capitalization side of things, which will drive your operational expenses down. So Steve's right. I mean, it is absolutely critical, in our opinion, that you build this into the cost of the overall build. And you'll be able to afford it obviously much more easily on that side. And it will drive down the cost of protecting your plant facilities as you're moving forward.
Yeah, the cost of an excavation damage is pretty severe. It can be quite severe. A repair of a fiber optic line, for example, is costly. But there are costs outside of that as well, right? When that line gets cut, let's say that fiber optic line is serving a major facility, a building like this, for example. Now your communications are down. So what is the impact to your revenue during that downtime? What is the impact to you to go and try to remedy the situation by recovering the cost of repair from the person who dug into the line in the first place? The costs kind of cascade from one damage incident, and it takes time, energy, and focus to deal with an excavation damage when it occurs. If you build in to your operations this idea that you can prevent these excavation damages from occurring in the first place, you ensure the sustainability of your networks, you ensure the long-term viability of those networks so that they can continue to perform the service that you originally installed them for. And in the long run, it will save you a lot of money with some upfront effort.
The irony of it is the fiber optic network is what's going to carry the information we need to do the locates in the future. So your network has actually become very important to protecting not only your asset, but the water, the sewer, the gas, and the electric in the future. Because this is how you're going to do your locates. I don't know if it's 5 years out or 10 years out. Mapping is key now, and then the locate world will change, in my opinion. But the network that you are building that we're talking about in this room is what's going to carry that damage prevention to the field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, again, a piece of advice number one, get your mapping correct as much as you possibly can on the head end of these projects. The next piece of it we want to talk about a little bit is sort of the level of accountability that you can bring to the construction and then the overall protection of these projects. The Common Ground Alliance has continued to evolve over the years, and we're constantly listening to our membership about what the next thing is that they value. And we heard this again yesterday a lot about just the vetting of contractors to come in and help you with these projects, whether they're consultants, engineers, or actually constructing the project. There's a level of accountability that needs to be built into this. And so in response to that, the next thing that the Common Ground Alliance did was create the Damage Prevention Institute that Sam has agreed to come in and run on behalf of the Common Ground Alliance. Sam, would you just talk to us a little bit about why the Institute is in its existence and how it helps impart that level of accountability?
Absolutely. To start this conversation, the Common Ground Alliance was established on the principle that preventing excavation damage to underground utilities is a shared responsibility. It's not one organization's responsibility to prevent excavation damage. It's many people's responsibility. That's easy to say, and it's difficult to put into practice. You will have people who shirk that responsibility. They don't wish to accept that responsibility. You can have situations where people may be unaware of their own responsibilities to prevent excavation damage. And so the idea behind the Common Ground Alliance is to really focus on this idea that we are all in this together. We must share this responsibility for preventing excavation damages. As a nonprofit, the Common Ground Alliance is here to not only educate folks about their responsibilities to prevent excavation damage, but also to create some accountability in that process. What the Common Ground Alliance has done is create what's called the Damage Prevention Institute, which is an arm of the Common Ground Alliance. And it is a collection of companies who have come together willingly and voluntarily to demonstrate to the rest of the community, the underground safety community, that they mean business and that they are serious about accepting those responsibilities for preventing excavation damage. What we are doing is bringing in these companies. We are asking them to demonstrate to us a commitment to their responsibilities by signing policy documents, demonstrating that they have proper training in their organizations and in their companies, and that they will submit to us data pertaining to the damages to underground utilities that they may be involved in. So as an owner-operator, you would report damages to your own utilities. We know that something was struck here. We want this to be part of the database. As an excavator, if you're out doing the work to install a utility, for example, and you accidentally damage a utility, you're going to submit data on that. Everybody in this Damage Prevention Institute, all of the participants, have agreed to be measured. They've agreed to follow policies that protect underground infrastructure, and they've agreed that the measurement of their performance in their own responsibilities to prevent excavation damage, the measurement of that performance will be transparent. They are going to demonstrate to the broader community that they mean business. They are serious about preventing these damages. It's an opportunity for you as owner-operators to make sure that the people that you are hiring to do the work are companies that are going to take their responsibilities to prevent excavation damage seriously. They have promised to be accountable to the system and to the people who are involved in the system.
And Steve, do you think from a contractor perspective, is this being well received out there?
Your good owners do. And I believe that's what we're in a room here full of, is they want a good project. The owners that want a very good project will look at a contractor and say, all right, what's your damage prevention look like? And hopefully they say we follow best practices, next practices. Some even take it higher than that. And here's our system. That's what you need to look for in a contractor. He may not be your cheapest contractor, but over the course of the project, he will cost you and the community less money by being the safest contractor. It's also a proven thing in this, and just so everybody in here knows, the safest construction companies are also the most profitable construction companies because they get the most done. You're in an environment that you're wanting to get these projects rolled out fast. You also want to get them rolled out effectively. You want someone that's safe. If you're doing this with your own crews and you're building your own crews, I would suggest you immediately join the Common Ground Alliance. Look at the best practices, next practices, put this in your safety programs. These are all very important. I mean, you want to make sure that not only is the contractor protecting himself, his employees, but more as importantly, protecting the community that he's working in, which is your tribal members when we're talking about this.
And I want to make it very clear, we're not selling anything. We are a resource to you to help prevent damage to your underground utilities, the things that you own and operate for the good of your own members. You don't have to be a member of the Common Ground Alliance to reap the benefits of what we do. We're not selling anything to you. If you do wish to join the Common Ground Alliance and get involved in some of the things that we do, we have a $1,000 annual membership, which would afford you the opportunity to come to meetings and participate in a variety of committees who focus on excavation damage best practices, data, what we are learning about what's really causing these damages and how we can prevent them. If you go to our website, which is on the screen here at commongroundalliance.com, you can download the best practices for free, understand what those best practices are, and when you go to hire a contractor for work, you should be asking that contractor if they're aware of these best practices. These are widely accepted best practices. They're not something that we just came up with. They are best practices that were developed by 100% consensus. The people who care about this got together and said, this is how we make sure that these utilities are protected. So those best practices, they're not for sale. They are free for you to use. And if you are hiring someone to do work for you, you should ask those folks if they're familiar with those best practices and how they put them in, how they implement them in their business processes.
Well, I'd even go one step further. As you're writing your contracts, add the best practices in your contracts. That is required that the contractor follow your best practices. It really is a good thing. And like when Sam talks about, there's 16 stakeholder groups at Common Ground Alliance, and then whether it's public safety, we've got someone there from the EMT world or the fire world. We've got construction, engineering, gas utilities, fiber utilities, or communication utilities. We have local governments, pipelines, electric, water, sewer. We want people involved. We would love to have anybody here that wants to be involved and wants to get in part of these stakeholder groups. We want as much involvement as we can because we want to develop systems that are better and safer across the country. Just so everybody in this room knows, damages to underground utilities cost the country $100 billion a year. That's with a B, $100 billion a year. Our goal is to drive down damages 50% over the next 5 years, which will save the country as a whole $50 billion, whether you're an owner, whether you're where you're at. These costs all get passed on to the end consumer, which is the clientele that's using all our services. I would much rather see that not happen, leave that money in their pocket, they can do what they want to with the money, than what we're doing with it now, which is a complete waste. So we really want to drive down these damages. We would like to see you all more of a part of it. You can talk to any of us three up here about that. But like I said, these are Common Ground Alliance. Sam said it's best. These are free for you to use. This is about damage prevention. It's about not having that issue. And that's where we want to be.
I also want to offer that we are here to support you in the long term. We're not going anywhere. If you want to talk to me directly during the meeting this week, I'd be happy to talk with you one-on-one. I'm Sam Hall. I'm the second person here in the list. This is Josh Heinrichs, Steve Sellenreck. Please reach out to us. I will offer to support any of you who want to reach out and discuss these issues and learn more. We are here to help. We are here to protect not only your underground utilities, but the lives and the safety and the health of the people who are working around those underground utilities and our environment. That's our mission. That's our goal. We want to support you in that. So please reach out. It's not a sales pitch. We will not be pressuring you to buy anything. We want to help you understand how to do what you need to do to make sure that your utilities are up and running.
All right, guys, great information. I want CGA and I wanted the tribes to understand exactly what that process is. When you put like $1 million of fiber in the ground, you want to make sure no one cuts it because it's a big deal if they cut it. Your things are going down, you try to bring it back up and trying to get all this stuff done. But also the fact that, if we hit a tribal water line, we're losing all that water, especially out here in the Southwest. I mean, water is precious. We don't want to lose as much as we can. So trying to get these practices done together for any country, this is something new for us. We're all sovereign nations. So it's going to be a little bit different process. I wanted the Common Ground Alliance to start looking at us, who we are. It's going to be a little bit different for our sovereign nations, how to dig there. We can voluntarily go underneath state 811 rules if we want to or not. But why not try to develop that for ourselves or work with at least the Common Ground Alliance, form a partnership. And that's kind of why I wanted you guys to come out today, because we're still not there yet to get this going. It's going to be about a year after we go through our EAs before we get money to start putting fiber in the ground. So that's coming here soon.
But starting early is the best part of the process, because if you start thinking damage prevention early, you can lay it out and not be chasing yourself.
Right. So I was hoping that we could form a partnership to where we have a CGA Tribal Alliance group that it's tribal specific. We know what is happening in tribal lands. We know how to work with this. But if we can get all of us getting together to be able to protect our utilities, to make sure gas, water, sewer, and fiber optic cables are all protected. The biggest thing too is when water companies from the tribe go out there and start digging around and they start cutting your fiber, they think it's no big deal, but it is a big deal. And some of those costs can be high just to get it spliced together. It is a process. So you want to make sure that your fiber optic cables are not cut in a lot of places. You start getting lost and you got to replace a whole section of cable. So in that instance, we've got to start thinking about how we're going to protect it, but also protect all the other infrastructure utilities on the reservation too. And this is a great process on how to get that done. So we are just at the very start. We're the ground floor and foundation of how this is all going to happen. So we need to get to that place where we all work together and work with the Common Ground Alliance. Why should we rethink this? I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I mean, these guys have already done it. So with their guidance and our help, we can do a tribal type of Common Ground Alliance where we're working together with them and everything else. So hopefully we can adopt a lot of their best practices for any country. So that's why I brought them here. Next time, hopefully we'll get to see more slides about if you hit a gas line. I've seen that where the flame is shooting about 100 feet out and burning up all kinds of dozers and people lose their lives. I mean, it's real.
It's real.
Other things is to make sure our contractors are safe. They're not going too deep. There's not anybody in that hole to make sure that they're not down there that far without some kind of a shoring. Those are some of the things that people need to know. It could cave in and kill someone too. So all these best practices are for us to learn. And you guys are at the very start of this for the new projects that you guys are doing it. For us NTTA folks that we've been doing this for a long time, we know this. And we've kind of made our own system right now, but we're going to have more people coming together to build new networks all across the nation. So I want to get everybody together. So I want everybody to start figuring out how we're going to do this. And the Common Ground Alliance is here to do that to help us. So hopefully we can get going. Hopefully we can get some kind of a partnership where we have maybe it's just a relationship where NTTA and CGA can come together. We join all as a group together with you guys because we're still learning. We're not knowing what we are.
So are we.
Costs are kind of high for us. So if we can join as one member and everybody that's part of NTTA can be part of that, we can start that relationship there. So I sure appreciate you guys coming out today, letting us know about all this stuff. So like I said, this is the start of it and we're getting that relationship started. Hopefully at the fall, we'll have a bigger presentation of that and we'll go forward for you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you.
questions about this alliance that we're looking at? No? Yeah, well, you will later because like I said, you guys are not there yet, but you guys are going to be asking all kinds of questions. And if you do start a voice network too, we'll throw that 811 in that local exchange. So that's one of the things that we want to look at. So, all right, guys. Thank you, guys.